Mistletoe Over Manhattan is a really sweet film, and I think the main reason I liked it is because of the character of Mrs. Clausberger, who is in fact Mrs. Claus. This was released in 2011. It's directed by John Bradshaw, written by Hilary Hinkle, Linda Engelsiepen, and Rickie Castaneda. And Santa Claus is losing the spirit of Christmas. So Mrs. Claus decides to go and find something that she can bring back to Santa Claus to reignite his Christmas spirit. And she decides to go to New York City. She goes to Manhattan to try and find this Christmas spirit. And she doesn't have a very clear plan. She's not entirely sure what she's looking for. But she has this encounter with a police officer, and they get on really well immediately. And the police officer basically asks if she would be his children's nanny. That sounds like a giant leap, but within the context of those scenes, it kind of makes sense. It's not too forced. And the children's mother, the parents are actually going through a divorce, so they are actually separated, but the children's mother agrees to give Mrs. Clausberger a trial run because she's going out. She actually does need somebody to watch her children. And Mrs. Clausberger, that's the name she goes by, because obviously she can't go around saying her name is Mrs. Claus because people, well, they're going to think she's maybe losing it a little bit. So she looks after these children, gets to know the family, and the role she plays is to help them steer their family in the right direction because the paths they're going down just now might not be the best. And meanwhile, we have displays of the spirit of Christmas, the spirit of giving. We have some scenes back at the North Pole where the elves, one elf in particular, is frantic, trying to get Mrs. Claus to come back home. Santa's wondering where his wife is. Those scenes I didn't really care for. I don't mind them, but I kind of wish they were not in the film because I feel like it pulled me out of the main narrative and made it feel a little bit more gimmicky. I think the elves should have just accepted that she went away to help Santa by finding the spirit of Christmas, and then that's that. It doesn't affect my overall enjoyment of the film, but just as a point of criticism, I personally feel like it's something that made it feel a little bit cheap, and it kind of stopped making it, in those scenes, it stopped being heartwarming and became a little bit more silly. And I don't like that for that film. I don't feel like it fits in with the rest of the film. As I said, Mrs. Claus is one of the main reasons I love this. She's played by Tedde Moore, and she's brilliant. She's the embodiment of Mrs. Claus, exactly what I would have pictured. We also have Mairtin O'Carrigan as Nick Claus. We do see Santa a tiny bit. We also have the parents played by Tricia Helfer and Bryk. And it's a really sweet film. And it works really well. It could have been gimmicky. I know I said the scenes with the elves do feel a little bit cheap and gimmicky, but the concept as a whole could have been gimmicky if it hadn't been done right. But actually, I think it's done very well. Mistletoe Over Manhattan is a really lovely film. I thoroughly enjoyed pretty much all of it, and I definitely recommend it if you're looking for a Christmas film that you haven't seen.